right. Well, we'll get started then. Uh, Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Fraley at UW Eau Claire, and really excited for the second half of our exchange with UW Stevens Point and Dr. Sarah Manasreh. So thank you for having this exchange set up this semester. Just introduce Dr. Manasreh quickly. So aside from all things clarinet at Stevens Point, she also teaches single reed techniques and some music theory courses. She has experience in a big variety of musical styles, has played with a number of orchestras, has done some big band stuff, and I think especially cool, solo interests in clarinet and electronics. Always seeing really cool pictures of performance recordings that are going on. So we're really excited to have her in our studio class today, work with a few Eau Claire clarinetists. So we'll get started then.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's ironic that we're our neighbor schools and we have our studio classes at the same time.
I know. It's really convenient though to do an exchange.
So up first we have Sophie.
Hi, I'm Sophie Steger. Um, I'm a junior music education major, and today I will be playing Braum's first sonata, the first movement.
Sorry, before you begin, is there a place that you'd like to stop?
I will get through just about to the end of the key change.
That sounds wonderful. All right, let's hear it. Yeah, very nice. Wonderful. Good job. Sorry about the little ding. I forgot to close my browser. Yeah, good. So why don't we start? I don't know what edition you have, but at the key change. Give you a little chance there. Remember your C flats. Those are tricky to remember because we don't play with C flats very much. Good. So this whole section, I think this is one of the most stressful sections. There's a lot of weird sliding and there's a lot of minute kind of dynamic changes. So what do you think about in this section? What are some images that you have? What does it represent to you?
Well, I like to think of this piece as like knowing the history of Brahms and how he had a thing for Clara Schumann and like that was like really scandalous. This is kind of like the lamenting, like sad part where he's like, is this love unrequited? Like it's kind of sad and he's like longing for her.
Yeah, I think that's a great image. And yeah, it was really kind of sad. So let's take a look at just this opening. So from the very first measure, the first two bars, can you just play those first two bars for me?
Of the key change?
Yeah, of the key change. Yeah, so so just those two bars. Where is the loudest moment?
It should be that C flat, but I'm not playing it that way.
Okay. So let me hear you play it with that being the loudest moment. Right. So is that exactly how you want it?
I don't know if that's exactly how I want it, but I think it sounded more musical and more heartfelt than the way that I played it before.
Yeah, good. So what would you change? I think it was beautiful, but what would you change if you could do it again?
Um, Maybe think of the C flat to the B flat as almost kind of like a psi motif.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Try it one more time with that in mind. Yeah, that was really beautiful and expressive. So let me ask you this. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. There's a point to it, I promise. And I like your mask. We don't have any of those here. That's great. So how loud do you want that C flat to be?
I'd say a mezzo forte.
Okay. So what I want you to do is play that C flat exactly the volume that you want it. Just isolated, just the C flat. Okay, good. Now what I want you to do is play the first note exactly the volume that you want it. So that D flat. So find your starting dynamic. Good. Now what I want you to do is play that and then immediately after play the C flat exactly at the dynamic you would like.
Okay.
Right, good. So now, how do we get there? Let me ask you this. What are some ways that you practice your dynamics? What are some tactics that you have?
Like practicing dynamics. I mean, like it's easiest to see if you're achieving your dynamics if you're like recording yourself and then you can go back and listen to it, but I don't think I've ever like thought about practicing dynamics before.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with it because it's subjective, but I like to plan out. I'm a planner. I'm a little bit obsessive. Like I like to control things a little bit. So I like to plan out exactly where I want to start and exactly where I want to end and what happens in the middle. But the real trick is finding ways to bridge that gap. So, have you ever had it where maybe you're struggling with something with rhythm and you tongue the subdivision? So, for example, eighth notes, you're like that, just to get the subdivision. Have you ever done that?
I mean, not to my like recent memory.
Okay. I like to do that when I'm messing things up rhythmically, but I also like to do it when I'm practicing musicality. So we have a starting place and we have our loudest spot. So what I would like you to do is tongue each eighth note within these, and I want each one to get slightly louder, like you're pouring kind of water into a bucket and it's just getting heavier and heavier. Can you try that slow motion? Yeah, do that one more time just to kind of get a feel for it. So each eighth note, once you did it perfectly, once you get to the loud point, each eighth note, now you're taking something away. Yeah. Good. Was that the gauge that you would like? Were there any eighth notes out of place?
I think I have a more difficult time crescendoing than decrescendoing. I think my decrescendo is more even than my, did I say that right? My decrescendo is more even than my crescendo. Yeah.
Okay. Try it one more time. See if you can get each eighth note. Just think, I'm going to put in, I don't know, 5 peas into my shopping bag. Exactly. Each eighth note is just a little bit heavier.
Okay.
Really nice. So now what I want you to do is I want you to think those eighth notes and imagine that they're getting louder, but don't audiate them. So play as written, but feel those eighth notes within the crescendo.
Okay.
Good. There was one little hiccup, I think, that maybe you didn't mean. And this is a hard spot, this D flat to the D flat. Really think about the last eighth note of that quarter note D flat being a little less, or the first eighth note of the next D flat being a little more than the last one. Try it one last time, and I promise we'll move on to the next little phrase. Good. So how happy were you with that?
On like a scale from like 1 to 5, a 4.
Okay. Okay. I like it. That's probably a little higher on the scale than before. Good. So let's do that again with the next 2 events. So we have this thing that repeats itself, right? Starting on the A flat. Cool. I want you to play the first one followed by the second one exactly how you'd like it. So do you see where I am?
All 4 of those measures?
Yeah, yes. So there's the first one and then there's a pianissimo one. Good. Try it one more time. Good. So let's make some decisions. Let's just walk through what we did for the first little bit, which was, so where do you want the first A flat and where is the highest point? Where's the turnaround?
I don't, maybe the A flat, like the higher A flat.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that whatever you decide, whenever you're practicing musicality, experiment and see which one, but using this subdivision technique will help you decide exactly. So let's play the first note exactly the dynamic you want, and let's play that A flat exactly the dynamic you want. So the lowest and the highest. Maybe a little bit louder. I mean, I'm on Zoom, so I don't know. Maybe a little louder on the high A flat. Good. So now I want you to do the subdivisions in between and add a little bit more in the bucket every time. So just like that. Give it a try. Good. Did you change your mind about what you want the highest note to be when you did that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes it super clear when you subdivide it. So where is the moment that you want? Where is your height?
The G flat.
Yeah, so try it one more time and aim for the G flat. Right. And here's the trick when you're doing this. If you get too soft too soon, you won't be able to do it. So
Yeah.
that was a little too soft too soon. Can you try one more time? Good. Now play as written, whatever tempo you want, but think those eighth notes. Da, 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 dee, da, 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 dee. Good. Now I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to think the eighth notes in the next one, and I want you to just think of everything being a little less. Good. Now play, just to finish this off, play from the beginning of that key change to there, and just think those eighth notes a little bit more and a little bit less. Just feel that subdivision through your crescendos and decrescendos.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're probably out of time, but I want to say one more because that's my catchphrase. Try one more time and see if you can make the second one even less, the second iteration of that.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted in there.
Totally okay. Good. Now this next F, I want it big again. Start this F exactly the sound, the dynamic you want. Yeah. Very good. So when I'm practicing dynamics, it's very subjective, but when I take it to the subdivision and I ask myself exactly how am I pacing things? How loud do I want this? Where do I want to start? And I practice it just like technique. You know, we slap on the metronome and we do things over and over again. I do that with dynamics as well. And that way, when you're under pressure and you're nervous, that also goes on autopilot a little bit, just like when you've really practiced something technical. It also helps make decisions like how loud do I want it? Which note do I go to? It becomes clear when you feel the subdivision. But the most important thing is whatever you decide, just sell it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. This was great. Wonderful technique. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, so we're gonna switch here.
Perfect. Switcheroo. I haven't played the Weber concerto in like a decade and a half. This is I think this is my favorite Weber concerto out of
The Weber. I think whatever one I'm playing is my favorite.
I think that's true. It's same with the Brahms. Anytime I play one of them, I'm like, oh, this one's my favorite. And then I play the other one. I'm like, no, this one's my favorite.
Yeah. Gotta like suit up before we play here.
Yeah, I know. I know. You all are you are these masks? Oh, you were making those masks, weren't you?
It was, yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm not crafty. My studio, I was like, cut a hole in a mask.
Just trying to figure it out. The bell covers have slightly improved, but they're still make things a little more interesting than I'd like sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, with that B and the all the long notes. Makes it hard to go over that break.
It does, yeah. Some funky tuning things too sometimes. It's really interesting.
And everybody sounds softer than I'd like them to. Hi.
Hi. I'm Erica. I'm a junior music education major, and I'll be playing the Weber's Concerto Number 1, the first movement.
Great. Is there a place that you'd like to stop or anything you'd like to feature?
Dr. Freddie, where do you think I should stop?
Oh, did we find a stopping point this morning?
Okay. Yeah, whenever you're ready, you can, and just stop when you feel like you've wowed us enough. right, very nice. Great stopping spot. Yeah, I really like your sound. It's very open, very free. Nice work. Lots of long tones in your past, I assume.
Yeah, I do long tones to warm up every day.
I can tell. It's really, really nice. Good, and a lot of great technique stuff. Let's go to this opening. This is, I think that my favorite thing about Weber is how dark he gets.
Yeah.
And I like going dark. I like dark music. I'm kind of a, I don't know. If I like to think about the universe and how big it is too long until I'm scared. So I like that kind of like digging in. So tell me a little bit about this first phrase. What are you thinking about? What are your feelings, scenes, images, whatever it is, however you connect with it?
Well, I looked up conduolo because I didn't know what that meant, and it means sorrowful. And then I like tried to play it sorrowful, and it was like kind of okay. And one day in our lesson, Dr. Fraley played it, and it was like really lethargic and just like sad and longing. And I was like, oh, I like that better. So then I was like, we're gonna make this more lethargic and like longingly. So that's what I think of, like someone's lost something and they want it back, but they can't have it back.
Yeah, that's great imagery. Yes. And I think it fits, with the whole piece because there are these moments of sunshine and you don't know if they're just remembering good times because it gets dark again. This is a pretty dark movement in many places, and especially the bookends. So you don't know if the middle is kind of like a reminiscing of the thing that they lost or not. So I want to talk just a little bit about the relationship between phrases. So to really bring out this pain, we have to do all sorts of things with our musicality, our dynamics, our shaping, all of it. So can you play the first two events? So the one that starts on the B flat and the one starts on the C.
Yeah.
Good. So we have three options always. My students are going to be like, oh my God. So we can play something louder, softer, or the same. And I truly believe the composer is telling us without even writing dynamics. So he didn't give us much, at least in my edition. I don't have very much. So we open up. What dynamic do you want to start with?
Like somewhere between mezzo piano, mezzo forte.
Okay. And then the second event, louder, softer, or the same?
More, not very much louder, more like mezzo forte if I was going to go mezzo piano on the first one.
Okay. So what do you think the music is telling us? They're almost identical, right? These first two events. But the second one is higher. What is Weber telling us without telling us? What's the subtext?
The way I see it is that the second one is more important.
Say that one more time, sorry.
The second one feels more important.
Okay, I like it. So could we try starting the first one just a little less, same shape, but then the second one, we're going to choose option, whatever I said, 3, more. So then it's the same shape, but you're just upping it a bit. Can you put those two together? Yeah, one more time. Can you exaggerate it just a little bit more?
Yeah.
This, for all of you that have not had the joy of being in Wisconsin, we are just coming out of the polar vortex. And I don't know about you all, but my reeds are protesting deeply.
Yeah, I had my lesson today and I went through 3 different reads before it because none of them wanted to live life.
Yeah, they start to get buzzy and uneven. The weather is anywhere is crazy. All right, so I want you to sneak in even smaller, maybe piano.
Okay.
Same shape, but then the next one, up it a bit. And I want an even, like, same shape, but bigger, more crescendo, more decrescendo, more important.
Okay.
Yes. So now all of a sudden the two are joined. It's a story, right? And just a disclaimer, musicality is subjective. So always default to what your professor says. This is just my interpretation, but showing that relationship is so important. So now we have this thing where we go back down to a B flat and it's getting rhythmically faster. But let's just talk about the very entrance of this next event. It's lower. Should we start more, less, or the same?
I'd say start the same, but then grow into it because it repeats itself again. So I feel like it's adding more emphasis and more tension.
Yeah. So can you play? I would agree. Can you play now from the beginning? I want you to think about every entrance. So wherever you go, the next one has to be more and bigger. And then I want you to make sure that the entrance of the next event is the same as the one before. And then I want you to go. Show me that repetition.
Okay.
Good. Now this next thing, louder, softer, or the same?
Softer.
Okay. Let me hear that. Let's hear just that on its own. Okay. Make sure that you're decrescenting to that C sharp just a little bit. One more time. Very good. Okay. Here's something that I would like to ask you to try. The third event, starting where it starts to the repetition, I want you to start it the same as the beginning, so softer. But I want your crescendo to be out of this world big.
Okay.
Can you try right there? Just kind of sneak in, but immediately just get bigger. Good. And the next thing?
Oh, okay.
Good. Now let's put it all together, and then we're going to move on to the next section and use this information to help us through this really weird cadenza-like sounding thing.
From the first measure I come in, or from where I started the last time?
From the first measure.
Okay.
So sneak in, and the next one's more, and then less again, but big crescendo. Good. So now using what we're thinking about, there's events that are happening in music. Let's go to the next section. So we are accelerandoing all the way through, and it's getting stormier and stormier. Can you tell me a little bit about each event in this? Like, where are the events and what's happening?
I don't really know how to explain it, but I feel like there's like two measure groupings, and then the first measure grouping repeats itself, and then there's kind of the da 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 da, and I feel like it's just getting more aggressive up until you have the descending 16th notes, and then I feel like the way I see the mood of it is the contrasting triplets and 16th notes are like you're going back and forth between two different moods, and then it frustrates you, so then you just get super angry and super aggressive, and then it peaks at the D and down the 16th notes to the F sharp.
Okay. I like it. So are you saying the first event and the second event, the second one should be the same or louder or softer?
If the second event is the third measure,
Correct.
I think it should be almost the same, but with more direction to the forte in the fifth measure.
Okay. Let me ask you this. When you say something and nobody listens to you, and then you say it again, exactly the same, do you say it the same or louder?
Usually I start out saying it the same, and then I either give up or I just say, hey, listen to me.
Right. Let's pretend you don't give up. And let's pretend you're a little more impatient than you are. When you say something twice, like, hey, all my feet hurt. You know, everybody keeps walking without you. And so you say it, hey, all my feet hurt. Right? So you're going to say it louder. Can you show me that? The first 4 bars of this situation, the first one, I love the shape that you have. But the second one, I want you to be more insistent. I want the second thing to be more.
Okay. Sorry.
Good. Okay. Good. So let's think about where is the height of this? Where is the loudest point of each of the first 2 measures?
The E flat on the downbeat of the second measure.
Yeah, good. So when you go up to the E flat, then we need to come back down. So you have to treat them less as one giant thing. And you're saying something, you're saying it again, they finally heard you, and so you're going to elaborate. In theory, they call this a sentence. So the very first one. I'm going to start again, but more. And then you're going to tell them about how badly your feet hurt. You're going to tell them the details of it. I don't know why I picked this analogy, but I'm sticking with it. Yeah, that has a lot more cohesion. Now I want to take a little bit of what we did with Sophie, and I want to practice this decrescendo just a little bit, because I think it's going to change the way that you enter in your next event. So I like to look at every starting note. How did I end it? And then each starting note, how does it relate to the last starting note? So can you play that E flat as loud as you want it? And then play the rest of the 16th notes, each one getting less. Yeah. And then the next two notes are kind of the pickup, right? So wherever you left off there, you'll use those as the pickup. Good. One more time. Good. Can you, when you got to your A, you kind of plateaued out. Make sure each note is a little less. Yes. Now play from the beginning of this, continue, but see if you can incorporate that decrescendo because it's going to make a huge difference about how you enter with the next event. Good. Now let's take a look at those two pickup notes. I want you to start where you left off with that F sharp. So if you're here, I want a little about the same. And then you can grow to the D. So let me hear those four notes. From the F sharp. Good. I want the F sharp to be the least and the D to be the most. And the last D, one more D to the downbeat.
Oh, okay.
Good. Can you start from nothing? And each one is just a little more sand in the bucket. Nothing forte yet. There we go. So you're going to start, you're going to get to that E flat, and then you're going to melt to nothing. And then you've got a crescendo again. So you want to start exactly where you left off, but really start to grow the crescendo. Can you try that?
From where I was just at, or
From the beginning of the accelerando, poco poco. Very good. Really good. Why don't you finish that? We'll try one more time and finish it out. Go all the way to the last note. And just think about how you want each thing to start. Good. Now, last question. I think we're running out of time. This next high C, softer, louder, or the same?
I want it to be more like the very first entrance of the entire piece.
I love it. And then the next thing on that E flat, the last one, is that softer, louder, or the same than the one before?
I don't know. I want it to be like the same, but have more depth and like feeling to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why don't, because it's dying away, right? Why don't you start at the same, but then think every second is getting softer. So now try that high C and put those two events together.
Okay.
Good. Try one more time right there. And every second getting smaller. You'll have to tongue that low F sharp, I'm sure. Good. Now put them together and I'll leave you alone. There we go. And we've died away. The next thing that happens is probably going to be a little louder because the sun has come out. Good. So thinking about how these entrances relate, planning them out, and always asking yourself, do I want this next thing to be more, less? Do I want to start it less and then grow more? So make a plan, make a map, and always be looking at how the different phrases relate. If there's something that the composer is writing the same but higher or lower, that might inform what they're trying to say. Or if it's the exact same thing over and over again, that might be trying to inform us without writing the dynamics. So look for the clues in the notes and how these different events relate to each other. You sound wonderful. Really great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I think we have a little bit of time now. There might be a few people that have to leave for various rehearsals, but I think we have about 10 more minutes for those of us that can stay in our space here. So I know you were maybe going to talk to us a little bit more about some of your practice techniques, which I would love to hear. So I'm going to turn you so you can actually see some of the people.
Hi, everyone. That's a nice hall.
Yeah, we just have all park.
Yeah, so I think one of the hardest things, or one of the things when I began learning the clarinet that I really, really loved was practicing technique. It was so nice because it was so structured, and I could put the metronome on, 60, play a little lick, move it up 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or whatever was necessary at the time. And it felt really structured. But the thing that I really hated practicing was musicality. But that, I think musicality is the most important thing. I didn't know it at the time, but now I really truly believe that musicality, I would rather hear mistakes in the most musical performance ever than the most technically proficient performance that has no musicality. So I feel like musicality is how we connect. But I was constantly thinking about, how do I practice this? Am I doing this right? Is this the right thing? So I decided I wanted to tackle how I practice musicality with how I practice technique, which is very controlled and tiny little bits. I think the biggest practice technique that I use is understanding the form. And we didn't get into this today, but I first try to understand the larger form of the piece. The most common, for example, in the Brahms is, it's sonata form, but in large scale, it's basically an ABA. There's 2 themes at the beginning, and then there's this development, and then the themes come back. And what I like to do is try to figure out, how does the first theme, and when it comes back, what did the journey through the development do to the A themes, right? So I start large and I begin asking myself, where are the sections? What is this music telling me to do? And once I have a pretty good idea of how the form is relating to how I should play it, that gives me a game plan. And so then I can look at each section and I can begin to kind of break it down. And the practice techniques that I use are very much what I did today. I first look at phrases and their components. So for those of you who have taken, I don't know in your theory sequence, but learned anything about phrase types, whether it's a question and an answer, or whether it's a sentence that turns into a question or answer. I use those things to inform me about what to do. And I like to say to heck with the dynamics. I think the composer is really talking to me through the notes and the shape of the notes. Obviously, a lot of times the composer will put exactly what they want in the dynamics, in which case I respect them. But dynamics are so subjective, just like musicality. So finding a way to practice and discover how these different phrases relate to each other. Because if, for example, if it's a question and an answer phrase, if there's two phrases and they relate, then I might do the second one louder because it's the answer. I try to think about, well, what would I do if I was having a conversation and somebody asked me this question? Does the question sound rude? Does the question sound, um, gentle or kind? How would I respond to that? So I like to plan out what is my character. And then I like to really break down exactly how I'm going to get that character. I use the subdivisions a lot. And even when I'm performing, feeling the subdivision is a way for me to feel exactly where I am within a phrase. So it keeps me on rhythm, one, but two, it allows me to feel exactly where in the crescendo, because here's the kicker. Not every crescendo is even, and not every crescendo goes to forte, and not every decrescendo is exactly even or goes to piano. So planning it out for me was a way for me to take learning about how to be a musical player and putting it into the perspective of how do I practice this musicality in a way that when I'm on stage, it's innate, just like my technique. And so using form, and then the last thing that I think I use in my practice when I'm doing this is we get so caught up in whether something is right or wrong. There are times where I hear something that is, I think to myself, I would not have played it that way, but they sold it. Right. So, you know, allowing yourself to make a decision and practice it and try to sell that decision, and then have someone say, I don't really like that decision. And maybe your teacher's like, let's rethink this. It's not a slight on you. There are a million possibilities. The point is that you practiced it in a way that you were able to sell it. And one of the things that really breaks my heart with young musicians is musicality is always taught as something you'll get to later. But we are brimming with musicality even as young people when we start. So finding ways to tap into that kind of unabashedly young kind of musicality, finding those, not worrying about, is this character right or wrong? But how can I, if this is the character I think it should be, how can I make it that way? How can I practice it so I'm getting my crescendo exactly the way I want it, and the decrescendo and the color that I want? If there's a color change, how do I change it? So really planning that stuff out, and then being, having a conviction. But part of coming to study at university is, having those ideas, trying to present them, and then finding out that there are other ways to look at it. So your teacher is guiding you through that. And then eventually, for me at least, I developed my sense of musicality through absorbing everything that my teachers were telling me, the things that they liked. And there's some things that they told me to do that I still don't agree with, and I don't play it musically like that. But what they did give me was their true feelings about it. So I try to approach music as confidently as I can, even if I don't know the piece. I try to make decisions, experiment. And the more you begin to plan this stuff out and begin to really map how these phrases relate, how the sections relate, and even how does each single eighth note or 16th note within a larger note, the crescendo or decrescendo, how do they relate? The more the music talks to me, and the more that I can find what I think the composer was really trying to say, and then work on in a in a more controlled way of being able to replicate that over and over again. But it has to start with decision. You got to make a decision. It might not be the right one. You might finish and realize later, I don't know, my students know this. I'll tell them to do something and I'll hear it a week later. And I'll be like, I changed my mind. That's not how the music goes. So being flexible and understanding that your understanding of the music develops over time is really helpful. Does anybody have any questions about me, what I just rambled about? No? Okay. Hopefully it made sense. I didn't know that you all have to be out of the room.
No, it does make sense. I think we can push it for a minute or two here. So if there are questions, don't be afraid to ask, right?
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite pieces to play that has some really big character changes that would be like something that most of us have played by the time we're like freshman, sophomore, played or heard? Like what's a great piece to work on that, like on your own for fun for you?
That's a good question. The Roza Sonatina, I think. I think that, or the Osborne and the Roza. I think a great place to start with practicing this kind of stuff is unaccompanied music, because I think we feel as musicians like we have more ownership of that. We are always more reserved when we know we have to play with someone else about making decisions because we're worried, like, well, maybe this is wrong. But when it's unaccompanied, you can really dig into the characters. And so the Roza Sonatina or the Osborne are two of my favorites. And one actually that I discovered that I had never really studied or played, but I've now begun to teach is the Jacob Five Pieces. I think that they're brimming with character and kind of different ways to do it where you can really sell those characters to your listeners and let them know how you're interpreting it.
Great. Yeah. We all, I think we all know the Osborne
I
pretty
love
well.
those.
But yeah, so many opportunities to experiment with that one. So thank
Yeah.
you. Any other questions here? Or any on the chat?
Yes, the Jacob Gordon. And yes, I also sometimes will disagree with the dynamics that the composer is writing because they contradict with the notes that they wrote. But, you know, I feel like if I can sell it, then they would be happy with it.
Well, I think we're okay here, and yeah, we probably need to vacate our space. But thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you.
Hearing from you.
It, it was so lovely to hear some of your students, and yeah, thank you for the exchange. I look forward to the pandemic being over and we can all work together in different ways.
Yeah.
But so have a wonderful rest of your week, and I shall see you all again, hopefully soon.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.